Welcome and thanks for tuning in to the Victorian Aboriginal News Van Talks podcast. I'm your host, Charles Parkiner.
Victorian Aboriginal News acknowledges and pays respect to traditional owners and custodians across Australia. We acknowledge the elders who have gone before, those who currently lead their communities, and those who will follow in years and generations to come.
Joining me on the program is Kamilaroi man Richard Bell. An artist, political activist, he's particularly well known for using his art as a means by which he's able to highlight various Aboriginal rights issues. Uncle Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, mate. How are you?
Absolutely fine. Uncle, let's just get right into it. You're well known for using your art to be provocative, to prick the conscience of the general community. But it really stems back from what I see, from a very early time, your early childhood in Charleville, I believe.
Yeah, I was born in Charleville.
And you've said that the first 16 years it was a very racist place and you almost couldn't wait to get out of there. So how did that racism actually come about and how did it impact your future ideals and work?
Well, we lived on reserves. I was born in Charleville Base Hospital, just across the railway line from Charleville Yumba. We also travelled around the smaller country towns around there, Malvern, Augathella, Mitchell, living in tin shacks. We weren't allowed to live in town in those times. So
when you're saying you weren't allowed to live in town, that is the township wouldn't let you live in there because obviously you were black.
Yeah, and we owned the country.
And we'll definitely be getting onto that in the interview, don't worry about that. But what other forms of racism were you confronted with on a daily basis? I remember in one interview, the school bus, for example, picked up the white kids but didn't pick up the black kids.
No.
But nowadays you talk about that with a bit of a wry smile on your face. But what impact did that have?
Not much, really. We were tough people. We're used to adversity. It was a daily occurrence. I just think we got sort of numbed by, this onslaught of discrimination. We adjusted to it. I think it was really sad, actually. Geez, looking back at it now, I didn't realise how. I moved from Mitchell. I ended up being in Darwin. My mother was working at a home for half-caste Aboriginal kids.
Oh, we love that term.
In Darwin, called Retta Dixon, which is quite a famous home for blackfellas to be raised up in. I spent 5 years there, and then we went back to Queensland, and by the time we got back, I think it was 1966 or something, 1965. By that stage, we were allowed to live in town in these little country towns out west. So I missed that transition, from the reserves into the town. So when I got back there, we were allowed to live in the town for the first time. We weren't allowed to even shop in the town.
When did you, though, consider yourself to be an awakening activist?
It came well before the art. I could see what was going on, around, like everybody else. We knew what was happening. We spoke about it, often. Whenever we had times to sit around, maybe just fishing, talk about, what was happening, and we'd be listening for news, from other places,
and who's we? Who's we?
The other blackfellas, like my family and friends.
When did you start to realise that you were unsatisfied with the way that things were for blackfellas and that you needed to weigh in on the fight?
I think I was a teenager. I've been observing things since I was a kid, like I was 8 years old or something.
Yeah.
So I was watching all this going around me. I was increasingly frustrated. The inability to overcome these things, and what I saw was evil. I was there for everybody to see, and we were suffering from that. So I was looking. I didn't know what I was looking for, but what it was, I think I found it in my early 20s, when I went to live in Sydney, in and around Redfern.
Okay, that would be pretty formative around those times. So, when you left home at 16, apparently the story goes you went to a party, you just didn't go back home.
No.
So where did you go to after the party?
After the party, the party moved.
It was one of those parties, was it?
Well, I went to the next town east of us, for a New Year's Eve party.
Right.
And it was pretty boring. I ran into Sugar Ray Robinson and Porgy Hopkins, a couple of black fellas I knew from college.
And Sugar Ray's been very formative in your life, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, he would say, I think he used to stand outside the cattle camp, wait for the races thing. 14-year-old kid, and he built these men. So he was a bit of a hero for
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So where did you go to after that? After the party finally ended?
After that party, we went to the Roma. We thought, we'll just go there, and there'll be black fellas playing cards somewhere, and when we started driving, there was a single lane highway, and you had to share the road with cars coming from behind you.
And trucks, of course.
Yeah. And anyway, we're driving along there, and Porgy and Shug's talking to each other in the front, and this car come up around us. We must have been going about 60 kilometres an hour, on the highway, because we were so stoned. So anyway, this white guy in this car that passed us was pointing a gun at us. And I was holy shit, And Shug and Porgy was still talking to him, and I said, "Didn't you guys see that there?" And they said, "What?" I said, "The guy in the back seat was pointing a gun at us." And Shug put the foot down. Ran this car off the road. Gets out. Porgy gets out. Grabs his gun on his guy.
Oh my God!
I'm sitting in the back. That's all.
So
then we got to Roma, and we went to this card game and blah blah blah. Interrupted the whole thing. They hated it. Us coming in was drunk and stoned. I knew that they didn't like noise, so I just kept talking.
At what point, though, did you start to pick up the brush, to use art as a form of expression?
Oh, that wasn't until the late 80s. I started making tourist art, actually.
This is when you were making boomerangs and didges and spears.
And all that sort of stuff, yeah.
So what got you into that? That was just a way of making money? Or
that was my brother wanted to do something, and I just had a job, this fantastic job. I was running an Aboriginal corporation in Moree. There was like 25 staff,
Good Lord.
I think. And I was employed by the Catholic Church to create a legal entity that they could hand this property that was built on Aboriginal land, with a medical service, a childcare service, and an adult education centre. They wanted to hand that over to the Aboriginal people, so I created this legal entity for that to be able to happen. It gave me 18 months to do it. I think I did it in about 9, and I just got bored with the job,
So how then did the boomerangs and the didges and the spears come into it with your brother?
Oh, well, he visited me, and sold me on this idea of doing this, So I went and had a crack, of course it didn't work out so great, So.
But it obviously awakened something in you that, you had this artistic ability and a means of expressing yourself.
Yeah, well, this white guy came and visited us and suggested that we get into fine art. And I said, look at all these fine lines here. I had no idea what art was. Well, it was particularly contemporary art, So, but then he said, why would I get into fine art? And he said, well, you can say and do things in art that you can't do outside art.
So was this the formation of the famous comment, or what I consider to be a famous comment of Uncle Richard Bell? You can say what you like in art and you can't get arrested. I'm paraphrasing
you
it.
You can, but you don't. Basically, there's this thing called artistic freedom, and you basically can say and do anything that you want. You know, mind you, you're like our lives are full of self-censorship. You know, like where
Sure.
You know, like this good manners requires some kind of censorship. So I'm aware of that. I have to be aware of that, especially when I'm saying things. I do take into consideration what these things mean.
So when did fine art really become this is the passion, this is the way forward, and a form of political activism, or at least a voice for political activism?
My early journey in art was trying to get myself an education in it, and everybody I spoke to at that time advised me not to go to art college. Like, I continued, talking to people, and they, like all the artists, they were saying, yeah, that's the best way of learning. So, like, if somebody was really interested, I'd invite them around to my place, give them food, alcohol, and I'd pump them for information. And that was my art education.
So you're a bit of a magpie, just picking the best.
Yeah, just went out.
But a lot of your style, I think the stuff that really interests me in particular is your use of phrases, very short but poignant phrases in your artwork. When did that start to become a prominent part or almost a prominent signature of your works?
Oh, that's what
using text.
I started just using text, making attention-seeking backgrounds for the text.
So text was the main thing.
Yes.
And the backgrounds were almost a byproduct.
Yes.
Does that still carry you through now into your 70s?
Yes.
And what are some of the most memorable for yours that we can actually go to air with, given that we're not going to talk about the T-shirt that saw you pilloried in the Northern Territory Parliament?
My favourite one is quite recent one. Where I had this map of Australia, a black map of Australia, I think it was, and had a red background, and the text read, "A property dispute is turned into a race debate." It really describes our set of circumstances quite poignantly, I think.
The one that I think most people will remember is the one that won you the 2003 NATSIA, the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art Award, where Aboriginal art, it's a white thing. That also was done in support almost of your Bell's Theorem, or Bell's Theorem came in as a result of that. Let's just look at that one because I think it's particularly important. Aboriginal art, it's a white thing. What gave rise, in your mind, to that particular piece of art? What was the message?
What had happened had been a couple of decades of discussion about Aboriginal art, and how it was brought to the market, how it was created and how it was marketed, and all these sorts of things. These were under discussion, in Aboriginal communities. And basically, Bell's Theorem was the result of those conversations that I'd had over the years with lots of different people, mostly black fellas, and I got to write about it before other people, I guess.
Now, Bell's Theorem, for our audience, we will actually carry a link on the website with this interview with Uncle Richard to Bell's Theorem. There's a lot of anger there, disappointment, and quite blunt statements, and I wouldn't necessarily say name-calling, but when we talk about my favourite one, Bint, someone who's been in the Northern Territory, and the Liamees, those who've sort of got a little bit of knowledge and think that they can present themselves with great authority, and then of course the Bookies, those who've learnt it all from the books and once again present themselves with authority. What are you trying to get across there? This is in the section, I believe, called Tribal Order.
Yeah, I'm addressing a very long history of the dismissal of the rights of those who've lost the most, and that's us, the urban blacks from the bigger cities and that from around this country, not just in on the East Coast. But so
it's interesting you say that, because you don't often hear that urban Aboriginal people such as us are referred to as, we're the ones who've lost the most.
No, it's completely ignored.
Yeah, but so substantiate that for us.
Nobody says that. It's almost unmentionable. Because then it conjures up figures. That represent numbers that represent amounts of money.
Yeah.
Like my artwork sitting on the state library, pay the rent sign up on the state library. That's referring to the amount of money that the Australian government owes Aboriginal people just for the rent.
But if you put rent aside, Unc, and you look at what urban Aboriginal people have lost, it's not money.
No,
you put money aside.
No, this is just paying the rent on the land. This is not anything to do with the lost resources, with the lost culture either.
Yeah.
So we have lost so much here. And we have asked for so little, really.
Yeah.
For all this time. My position is that they should hand it back, and then let's have a discussion about what actually happens after that.
Ain't going to happen, Unc.
I don't care. That's my starting position.
What do you realistically see as happening, though? I know we're sort of working away from art almost in politics again, but what do you realistically believe could happen?
I believe that what could happen is that we'd have a one-size-fits-all treaty, that is ultimately going to be, almost negligible in its reach into Aboriginal communities.
Well, you're right. You're in the right state for that right now, Victoria, of course, with us, but we're not going to go down that path now.
I think what they've done here is quite extraordinary. We had a discussion in the embassy last week, and listening to what was happening, the process was fantastic. I'm not talking about putting any negativity on the Aboriginal side of things, because we're going in there with good faith, but we're ending up with colonising forces, who have a history of breaking treaties.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think there's one treaty that they haven't broken. So,
well, there's not one treaty across the world that hasn't been broken, one form or the other. North America's the big one on that one.
Yeah.
So what do you want to see happens apart from a treaty?
I think we need this truth-telling is
critical.
That's critical.
Yeah.
The people have to know what happened here. In the beginning, that's just it. I think the truth-telling is so important, and out of that, possibilities arise. For us to arrive at a better place than what we're at now. We're in a really dire set of circumstances here. We have no power, virtually no resources behind us. We are nailed to the bottom of all socio-economic indicators in this country, and that's systematic oppression that has been built into the system here.
You've mentioned before, I'm going to bring it back to your art a bit because I think it's quite relevant at this point, that your art is for Aboriginal, not non-Aboriginal people. But I want to take you to task on that. That is that your art pricks the conscience of non-Aboriginal people. Do you see that is an important part of your work, that it starts to create the conversations, it pricks the conscience, it starts to get people thinking about, crikeys, we do need truth-telling, we do need to consider paying the rent?
Absolutely. Like to have a dance, you have to have partners,
Yep.
If you want a tango, you've got to have a partner.
So we can consider your art almost as the background orchestra to encourage people to get together and start dancing towards a better future.
Oh, maybe a rock and roll band.
But how important do you see your art in the movement that we can call reconciliation, or whatever you want to call it? But how important do you see your art in those discussions?
I have to be modest about it. It doesn't have that much reach. I don't think so.
Sorry, you're being falsely modest? Let me ask you.
Well, I'm not trying. My goodness, not enough people even know, the basics about us. There was some two women came into the Aboriginal Embassy last week, and none of them had met an Aboriginal. Neither of them had met an Aboriginal.
We hear
Neither
that a lot,
of them knew anything about it. But they sat there through the whole session.
Well, let me argue with you then. But it was your art that brought them in, to a degree.
Yeah, to a degree, but it's into an environment that was created, by young Aboriginal people, more than 50 years ago now.
Sure.
So that made it possible, for that to happen.
But we see this exhibition, and just for the audience's sake, we are here at Koorie Heritage Trust today in June, early June, talking with Uncle Richard in the prelude to an exhibition out in the Federation Square. People come to these, they pass the exhibition, they hear you talking with Uncle Gary Foley. These things attract people. You have a role to play. I mean, there's got to be something that after 200 years has got to be pricking the conscience. Is that a bit of a driving force that you are trying to get it across to the non-Aboriginal people?
Absolutely. Look, I started this journey so that these messages would go outside this country, and that way they can't disappear our history. They can't disappear these stories if they're going out into the world. I'm aware of that. And it's so important that these stories, that our stories, get out into our own communities here. This country that we have, this massive island continent that we exist on here. I'm trying to imagine a better world, for us. And I think, nothing has ever happened without it being imagined first.
We'll get to the last question, and that is that you're one artist. You've been working for decades on promoting awareness of Aboriginal rights in this country. Do you see that your contemporaries and your peers, other artists, regardless of where they are in Australia, and we're talking Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists, is there a duty that they carry to promote, at least at one level, awareness of truth across Australia?
I'm not sure. To be honest, I feel that I have a responsibility. I've got an education. My family, my parents, and those around us, they wanted us to get an education so we could, move into this modern contemporary world. So I'm living up to that. They struggled, to get us to that place. Now we have, so many people, who are so highly educated, and we're telling these stories. We're pushing out our own barrow these days. So I think we've done quite well in that regard. Education, the focus on education has been exemplary, I think.
Would you like then, so a supplementary question, as I know that would you then like to see more Aboriginal artists take their skill as being important in promoting the message?
Well, 100%. I think we should, I try to do as much as I can in that regard. Some people just want to make beautiful things.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And if they don't feel comfortable, making political statements, well, they should be allowed to do that.
Uncle Richard, thanks so much indeed for coming onto the program.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
For a full transcript of this interview, visit the Victorian Aboriginal News website at vicaboriginalnews.com.au. Until our next episode, stay safe and stay informed.